What's up, everyone? Welcome to Wake Up World. This is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, go check it out. About what's going on in California effective January 1st, 2016 with the gun confiscation. I talked about what's read basically in the article. You'll see the links to the Huffington Post and I think maybe a couple others I put there. But at the end of it, there's like 15 slides that says what the 15 things the gun industry wouldn't admit. So I'm going to go over those. And Huffington Post, if you happen to see this, you cannot take this down because I have the right of freedom of speech, and also I have the freedom of press. What this exactly is, it's talking about your articles, and here we go. So I'm gonna have fun with this. The first one is, and you can go ahead and just click the link and follow with me. The first picture is a bunch of NRA little like pins. Yeah. Anyways, I can't think of what they're called right now. Anyways, it says it spends a huge amount, talking about the NRA, it spends a huge amount of money on lobbying. The National Rifle Association spent between $1.5 million and $2.7 million on federal level lobbying efforts between 2001 to 2010. So, I mean, really? You're gonna go that low? Here's the best one. And I mean that very sarcastically. I can't believe that they would even go this low. But it says this in the next slide. It profits from tragedies. Let me point something out to you, Huffington Post. I'm from Colorado. I have friends and I have family that live in Aurora. It's interesting enough you don't bring up Columbine. Where criminals purchased firearms illegally using a third-party person that could own them, because they were underage for one, and they went and massacred a school asking people if they believed in God. Hey, I'm one of those that believe in God. I had family members that I believe knew people in that school at the time. Anyways, you're really gonna go that low and say that the gun industry owns, or sorry, not owns, but you're going to own up to saying that they profit from tragedies. And this is the reasoning. It profits from tragedies after both the Aurora and Newtown massacres. The gun industry saw a huge increase in sales because people want to defend themselves from these massacres. Let me tell you something. There's such thing as good guys with guns, and there's such thing as bad guys with guns. And there's a lot of bad guys with guns. Actually, too many of them. I'd much rather be a good guy with the gun, or have a good guy with the gun, when a bad guy or his friend comes around and just starts shooting up people. I'd much rather meet that threat, or somebody else meet that threat, and eliminate it real quick. Next one, number 3. It pushes militarized weapons. Okay, here we go. It pushes, the gun industry won't admit this, but it pushes militarized style weapons. As an example, by the way, in my other video I talked about the example of Senator something Kevin D. Leon, a Democrat for Los Angeles. He made a fool of himself doing an anti-gun speech, basically holding up a short barrel rifle, which SBR stands for. I talked about in the other video. This is not an SBR, this is an airsoft. But he held up an SBR, a Armalite. That's what AR stands for. And he says, this is a ghost gun, firing a 30 caliber clip in 30 seconds. Let me make this clear. A militarized style weapon is not an AR-15. It's a platform like it, but it has the capability of a 3-round burst or a burst of fire to a fully automatic. You could get those, but like I said in the other video, it's extremely hard to acquire a military style weapon. A semi-automatic Armalite rifle is not a military style weapon. Case closed. Going on to the next slide here, number 4. Gun control legislation passed many times before. Like I said in the other video, giving you the example, you have a law-abiding citizen goes into a gun store, wants to purchase a firearm. One of the store members there asks the person, what's your intentions of buying the firearm? They then answer that. They also, the people that work at the gun store, have the ability to say no to the sale, and they do a lot, but no one talks about that. Then after you answer that, and I've seen employees at gun stores just shake their head at some of the answers they get when they ask that question. But if you give them a good answer, like for me, I would say for sport as well as self-defense, then you would get paperwork that you fill out. They take that paperwork and they call one of two government agencies, the ATF or the FBI, and they do a complete background check on you. So, when it says gun control legislation, we don't talk about criminals, though, that can buy from the streets illegally and use those firearms for the intended purposes that a criminal uses them for. Why do we need more gun control? If anything, what they should be doing is more effort on taking firearms from criminals that use them for evil purposes, from drug dealers, from gangbangers. I used to be a part of that lifestyle. I'm not anymore, thank God. Thank God, I mean, I didn't get too far down that rabbit hole, so I couldn't get back. Because, let me tell you something, I'm so glad I'm not a part of that lifestyle, and I'm so glad I can use the freedoms that I have in this country, and woke up to that. But on another note, we don't need more gun control. If anything, we need more good people with firearms. Going on. It doesn't matter. It doesn't represent most Americans. This is a completely blatant lie. And I love their news source, NBC Chicago Reports. I remember some of these polls asking people, should we have more gun control? And you had an option of yes, maybe or not sure, or no. Within 3 hours of that poll, it was 85% out of, I think, a couple 100,000 people saying no. We don't need any more gun control. Very few said yes, and there was actually more that were indecisive. But the majority said no, we do not need any more gun control. So when it says this, recent polls repeatedly, they use that, have repeatedly shown most Americans support stricter gun control. However, the NRA's chief lobbyist in Illinois said that gun control poll results should have no impact on whether laws should change. NBC Chicago Reports. You know what I like about the NBC Chicago part there? Obama said that Chicago is the safest city in the United States because they're completely they completely ban firearms for the most part. It's very hard. Now I know that's changing, but for him to say that, he is not looking at the actual statistics of the crimes used with firearms. I'm not blaming the gun, I'm blaming the person using the gun. A firearm, just as an example, again, this is airsoft. You can see right here, okay? That bolt is clear, and that's actually a gear in there. A firearm could be used one or two ways, for good or for evil. This, if you were just to lay it down, well, let's say it is an actual firearm. You rack around in there, you lay it on the floor, it's not going to do anything until it is picked up and used. Let me give you an example of that. If you were to do what I asked you to do right now, which is take a piece of paper and I want you to write your name, whose fault was that? Was that the pencil's fault, or was it your choice to write your name on that piece of paper using the pencil as that tool? A criminal uses a firearm to commit crime. That person is a criminal. They're not going to obey laws. Chicago has one of the highest murder rates for basically gang-to-gang activity. And yeah, they use firearms, but it's the criminal against the criminal using them. We don't have a gun problem, we have a criminal problem. We need to help the neighborhoods and the people in them move past that. That's what we need to do. Going on. Number 6, it makes a lot of guns. They're saying 15 things the firearm industry wouldn't admit. It makes a lot of guns. Over the last 25 years, 100 million guns have been in the United States. The Blaze reports in 2011 alone, U.S. firearm industry manufactures over 8 million guns compared to the 6 million guns that were manufactured in 2007. So what? Firearms, as I said, is used as a sport as much as it is as a defense tool. You know what the real weapon is? I'm the weapon. How I use the firearm is going to dictate what it was purposed for. If I'm going to shoot steel or targets, I'm using it for sport. But I'm also training if a threat were to actually come, and if I were to ever have to use a rifle and a threat would come, it's a bad day all around. But if I choose to use a pistol, if a threat ever came and I had to act on that, then I'm using it for self-defense. So big deal. What's the big deal if it makes a lot of firearms or a business? Going on. This one just wow. I don't even know what to drink, my cranberry juice or my water. It fears zombie apocalypse. This is what they really Huffington Post. You're really going to say it fears a zombie apocalypse? The firearm industry fears a zombie apocalypse? No. Not in the least. I mean, seriously. You're saying that... I'll just read what it says. Gun manufacturers have been accused of using marketing ploys such as hyping up the zombie apocalypse, fears to target new customers, Rolling Stone support or reports, zombie defense, or example of the entire company dictated selling firearms to customize an inevitable event of dead humans coming back to life and attempt to destroy the world. Okay, no. You know what it is? Why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and try to sue a t-shirt company for making all the Walking Dead stuff? How about we do that? Because that's really what it is. It's a fantasy that people put into firearms. Hey, you're going to sue Hello Kitty or Tiffany & Co. for making firearms? Because they put Hello Kitty on Armalite rifles. Tiffany & Company actually manufactures Glocks. I mean, come on. So you're going to say it fears a zombie apocalypse? No, that's just a tool that people like because they have a fantasy about killing zombies. It's stupid. I don't try to purchase a firearm because of stupid zombies. That is not my intention of buying a firearm. And if that is the person's intention and I was the person behind the counter and you were to tell me zombies, grow up and come back. Plain and simple. Moving on. President Obama has been good to them. The firearm industry, the gun industry, really. That's why he wants to confiscate and ban them all. That's why he completely made it illegal for imports of Kalashnikovs, AK-47s to come into the United States that are a semi-automatic rifle. He's so good to them, really. No, I like the one that he's the biggest, he's the greatest gun salesman in America. No, he's not. By his actions and what he's saying, and he's trying to make movement to those actions, or why people are arming themselves, because they do not like the fact that he is at the very, very thin line of a tyrant. And truth be told, I'll call him exactly that. He is a tyrant. He hasn't made a lot of rash moves as of late, but that could change real quick, especially with what's going on in California, why I'm doing these videos right now. I want to just read what it says. Dispute regular criticism of President Obama from the NRA and the program groups. Obama has actually expanded gun rights during his first term. Fear that Obama will crack down on guns has actually led to big revenue increases in gun manufacturers, prompting some ironic call him the greatest gun salesman in America. No, when Obama says on TV that attacks like this don't happen in America, blatant lie. Hey, look, you have... Now look, I'm not attacking just one group here, okay? I don't care what creed or what you are. But if you have evil intentions of taking out people, that is your intentions. But when you have radical Islam do what they did in Paris and what they're doing all around the world, and in Sweden, a lot of people aren't even talking about that. It does happen everywhere. And then he goes to say, we need stricter gun laws. No, he is going right after the object and not the person that's committing those crimes. He's not saying we have a terrorist problem or a potential domestic terrorist problem in our country. He's going right after the object. I'm just saying. That's why people are saying, no, I'm going to arm myself, because they do see the legitimate threat of a possibility. They also see that he's making some very tyrannical statements. Moving on. It will accessorize to attract women. So what? Women like to have, I'm not being sexist here, but women like pink. Okay? If you're following the link here, we're on 9 out of 16. And there's a pink Armalite rifle there. A pink folding or collapsible stock, foregrip. I mean, it's pink. So what? Women don't have the right to? Hey, if they don't want to buy an all-black Armalite rifle or a shotgun for that matter, or a revolver for that matter, they can have one that's pink. I mean, what's the big deal there? Okay, number 10. NRA members will support background checks. I'm not a part of the NRA yet, but they already do support background checks. I mean, I don't understand what your intentions were with that one. Number 11. The gun industry wants your children. Did people forget in this country there used to be rifle teams and shooting teams within schools? Like, actually, I remember seeing pictures of 1950 where actually there's a 22 in a locker. After PE, they were actually on a range. Inside of a school, they had a range. They had competitions between schools. Want your children. Like I said in the other video, some of these politicians I wouldn't trust a minute with a firearm. But some kids that I know that are 8 years old, even my cousins when they were little, I would trust them more than some of these politicians with a firearm, because they actually know what they're doing. I much rather, when I have a son or a daughter, I much rather teach them what to do, what not to do. Most of all, safety of a firearm, so they know what they're doing. If something ever arises, like they see a gun laying down, they know what to do and what not to do. How to be safe with it. If anything, I think actually kids should get more involved in learning the safety of firearms and what to do and what not to do. So that's just stupid what they said there. Number 12, it breaks promises. 15. This is, again, 15 things that the gun industry wouldn't admit. It breaks promises. And this is ironic. Smith & Wesson signed a pact with Clinton administration to cease making weapons that hold more than 10 bullet magazines. It later broke that agreement when profits plummeted. When the profits from that plummeted. I'm kind of glad I didn't buy a Smith & Wesson, or because if that's true, I don't really support that at all. But the fact that it said the Clinton administration, how hypocritical can Hillary be? Did you all know that she either does or did have a CCW? She owns firearms. So what if it's a 10-round magazine? Do I have to do the example of how fast you can reload a 10-round magazine to another 10-round magazine, and you can almost have enough rounds down range at an effective time even with the reload? It is not a gun control problem, people. It is a criminal problem. It is a domestic terrorist problem that we have. So, moving on. I'm kind of glad Smith & Wesson went back on what they said. Big deal. How many politicians go back on their words? While we're in the Clinton administration, how about Benghazi? And this one right here. The Second Amendment didn't use to apply individuals. Let me read that again. The Second Amendment didn't use to apply to individuals. While the Second Amendment does indeed say, this is what the post says, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That was historically interpreted as the right of militias to do so. Let me speak on this. It says the right of the people to keep and bear arms. It did not say the right of militia to keep and bear arms. It says the right to the people to keep and bear arms. It also says a well-regulated militia. And if you want to go on and split hairs, I encourage you to check out your state constitution, because In the state constitution in Ohio, it says plain and clear what the militia is. Has not changed, and it will not change in my eyes. Militia is male or female from age to age that is able to defend its state and people in the state. That means anybody from this age to this age. To me, a well-regulated militia is those who train. So, by that, the people of this state or your state, check out your state constitution. That is actually the militia. You have your National Guard. Yes, they're more regulated than your average Americans that are not in the military or the Guard. Does it change the fact that that person has the right to bear arms or they don't? No, it does not. They are still the right of the people to keep and bear arms. They are militia. My suggestion in that standpoint, train. Don't just buy a gun and do nothing with it and let it collect dust. No. It's like driving a vehicle. Okay? You may not drive a lot. It's like if you have a couple vehicles. You have a car and a truck. You drive your car around town, but you have a truck for a purpose. You don't use it that often, but if the occasion occurs, then you know how to use it, and you know how to use it well. That's based on my standpoint. And if you want to go back to the whole military-style weapons, if you want to go into this actual Second Amendment, how they go, well, it was for muskets, black powder rifles. That was actually a militarized weapon back then. So by that, we should actually be able to, as Americans, to own military-style weapons that are fully automatic or have burst capabilities without having to purchase a tax stamp, without having to have permission from the government or a local sheriff's department, if you want to split hairs. Personally, I don't like fully automatic because you're inaccurate with it. It takes a lot of training to get some accuracy, but you're still not going to be accurate. And when lives are on the line, I'd rather be accurate than inaccurate. So, according to the New Yorker, it was not until the 2008 the Supreme Court ruling, commonly referred to it as the Heller Disclusion, and the individual right to bear arms was under federal law. Okay, what does it say after that? But again, look, it's the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and it shall not be infringed. Plain and simple. So, the last one is, it picks losers. I mean, seriously, over 1 million, the NRA donated more money to Mitt Romney. So what if they donated money to Mitt Romney? I mean, you're really going to split hairs like that. Huffington Post, you really need to think about the things that you post when individuals like myself are willing to basically expose how ignorant and uneducated you are on the facts. Again, California, you need to speak up and speak loudly without force. I pray nothing happens. I am not telling you to start a war. But there is a way you could stand your ground, and that is using your voice. And I'm not just talking about the Californians, the regular people, EMTs, law enforcement officers, teachers, politicians. Please speak out against this. God bless you all, and please pray for our country in this hour.